On February 9th of 2004, 21-year-old UMass student Maura Murray drove from her dorm in Amherst, Massachusetts to the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura spun out her 1996 Saturn on a hairpin turn on Route 112 in North Haverhill. There has never been a credible sighting of Maura since.
Maura is 5 foot 7 inches tall. She weighs 120 pounds, and she has brown hair and hazel eyes.
If you have any information regarding Maura's disappearance, please submit it to us,
The Murray family at MauraMurrayFamilyDirect@gmail.com.
or the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit.
This is Missing Maura Murray. Welcome back to Missing Maura Murray. I'm Tim, here today with Lance in the Crawlspace studios in Wormtown. Lance, how are you today?
I am doing very well. How are you today, Tim?
I'm doing well. And Lance, for this episode, we bring our lovely audience episode 3 in the series we're doing on Dale Williams's disappearance. And this is part 2 with Dale's daughter, Toni.
Yeah, Toni is a great guest, one of our favorites. She's talking about her father's disappearance. He went missing in Nucla, Colorado on May 27th, 1999. His truck was found just a few weeks later on July 4th, 1999, submerged in some muddy waters where two rivers, the San Miguel and the Dolores River, converge in Colorado. And she's so forthcoming in these interviews. What she's talking about is truly tragic, but she has a mission to find out, first of all, who did this to her father and where he is now.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, Lance. And in this episode, we cover a lot of ground, sort of cover the searches done and how his truck was found and some clues about that and about his tools being scattered throughout the hills. And also she mentions a website called thediggings.com, and I just wanted to bring it up in the intro here. It will be in the show notes as well because she speaks about it in the last 10 minutes of this episode.
Yeah, thediggings.com we had never heard about before, but when you're looking at the area where her father went missing in Nucla and the surrounding towns, they're all mining towns. And if you go to thediggings.com, you can check out the claims maps that they have for mining towns in the United States. You can see who owns what, where they're at, how many mines there are active, how many mines there are total, because her theory is that her father was murdered and was disposed of in one of these mines. And while you're listening to this, I think I said it before, go to Google Earth and check out the terrain down there. See what you can get for street views right around Nucla and the areas of the San Miguel River and the Dolores River. It's a crazy area, Tim, and you can see where these old shafts were. If you were to be able to go into the woods a little bit, it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And before we throw it to the interview with Toni, I want to mention that there's a book giveaway that's happening after next week's interview on these airwaves. So check out investigationsforthemissing.org. Follow them on social media. That's Private Investigations for the Missing. And they're doing a book giveaway for Bob Kolker's Lost Girls book. And Bob Kolker joins us next week on Missing Maura Murray. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoy the interview with Toni. Now, according to Pastor Tom Ross and his son, they had stopped by to visit Dale at his shop around noon, and they said that Dale had received a phone call from someone saying that they had broke down about 3/4 of a mile east of Bedrock, Colorado store, which is a small store over there. What do you know about this? And do you know Pastor Tom Ross?
Yeah, I know Mr. Ross. He's a well-respected individual at the time in the community. He's since moved out of Nucla. But he was a great guy. My dad and him were good friends, well enough for Tom to feel comfortable to stop by during the working day and play a game of darts or just chat with my dad. So he He was definitely a good friend to my father. He said that he had, he is only hearing my dad's side of the conversation with the caller, and presumed that it was a woman based on how my dad was talking and answering questions. And he had heard my dad say, kind of confirm where this person was and what was going on. And then he had said, okay, I'll bring the wrecker. And the caller presumably said, oh, no, I just need to jump. And then my dad said out loud, all right, well, I'll just bring the pickup then. And he hung up and let Tom know that, there was somebody that needed help down in Paradox. And he excused himself and went on his way. He left the truck or the shop unlocked. The car that he was working on, the doors and hood were open. The interior lights were still on in the car the next day. And my dad had left in his white pickup down towards that direction. And he stopped by his best friend, not the ex-friend, the best friend's place of business, and spoke to his wife. He wanted to see, I think that he wanted to see if his friend could go with him. But when his friend wasn't available, he had said to his wife that he just stopped by to let her know that he was going to work on her windshield on a Tuesday. And she has told me that she thought that that was weird, that he could have just called. And so she thinks that he was there for another reason. And we have kind of come to the conclusion that it was because my dad wanted his friend to go with him to wherever he was going.
Is that something normal? Does your dad usually need help during these roadside assistance cases? And from what I've read here, it doesn't even seem like he did a lot of those.
Well, my dad wasn't a mechanic; he was a body man. But he was, as I've said before, he wasn't unable to do these things for people, and he would, if somebody needed help, he would go and help them. Especially if he knew who it was, he would, make sure that he would be helping. I think considering the circumstances with his shop being broken into and, all of this stuff going on in my parents' lives, that he had a feeling possibly of unease and wanted somebody there to support him in case something had happened or, who knows. I don't really know what he was thinking, but his friend's wife and I, that's kind of what we have come to conclude just based on how we both know my dad and the circumstances that had been going on in my parents' lives at that time, that he wanted somebody to go with him, and his friend happened to not be available.
And then he went on anyway by himself. Has it ever crossed your mind why he decided to do that? If he felt like the situation needed his friend to be present with him, why not just not go altogether? Why even go in the first place?
Well, I think that maybe he was contemplating whether or not it was an actual call and somebody actually needed help. So he wouldn't know until he got down there, and looked at it or, arrived at the situation. I personally don't. That's what I think. I mean, if he told somebody that he was going to be there soon and they were actually stranded and he didn't show up, then my dad took pride in being a good person. If he said that he was going to help somebody, he was going to follow through with that.
Right. And but you don't know who the caller was, and do you think Dale knew who it was?
In the beginning of the investigation, I kind of thought that maybe he did not know who it was, that it was just this quote unquote stranded caller. and possibly they had walked down to Bedrock and asked the store manager, hey, do you know somebody that can jump my car or give me a tow or something like that? And my dad was down there pretty frequently. He would stop in at the store whenever he was in the area and get a soda or, talk to the owners and stuff. And so it wouldn't be surprising to me that they wouldn't recommend this person call my father if they were truly a stranger and needed help. But now that as time has gone by and I've talked to my dad's friend's wife and, we've kind of speculated a little bit, I kind of swing towards that he did know this person, but that person has never been disclosed. The caller hasn't, or, no leads as to who the caller is.
And the law enforcement never mentioned to you that it was from a cell phone that was traced or from a payphone that couldn't be traced or anything like that?
Well, first of all, there has been, things have been said that it was a cell phone and then it was traced as stolen. But again, this area in 1999, there is no possible way that a cell phone would have been able to make that call from that area. No way. There's no doubt in my mind that that could have happened. There were no cell towers in that area. This is in Bedrock is in a deep valley with very tall cliffs surrounding it. And there's no way that there was a cell phone call being made from that area. I don't care what anybody says. That did not happen from that roadside.
So that leaves us with a payphone or a residential phone.
That's what I think, but I don't know if there's payphones in that area either. I think that when I was a teenager, I had been through Bedrock maybe 4 or 5 times, in my entire life. And so I don't really know what availability to make a call was down there or not. I think that if somebody were to actually make a call from that area, they would need to go to a physical landline in the area to make the call.
Okay, so maybe like a house or a store or something.
Right, and in that case, then the call would be able to be traced. With if they, the authorities aren't stupid. If the caller supposedly made a call from in the area and they're about 3/4 of a mile from the Bedrock store, of course they're going to go down and get records from the Bedrock store.
Right.
Nothing really came out of that I know of. And so I don't think that the call was placed from the area. And I don't think that the investigators know that or think that either. I think that they think it was placed from somewhere else, or, they don't have an answer where the call was placed from. But it definitely was not placed from the side of the road.
Definitely not placed from the side of the road by a cell phone.
Not in 1999. Maybe I don't know. Did people have satellite phones back then? I don't know how it would be physically possible. If somebody were to get on Google Maps, you can go straight to Bedrock and look at the terrain and see how tall these mountains and hills are, and there would have to be a cell tower fairly close for it to pick up anything.
So it stands to reason that someone could go just outside of one of these towns or into a neighboring town and use a payphone and just simply say where they're at and lie about it in order to bait your father.
Yeah, I think that that's feasible.
Yeah. I feel like that's the easiest thing. I feel like overthinking it would just mean that they would have been caught by now.
Right.
Yeah, because that call should have been able to be traced pretty easily.
I don't know how all of that works, especially Nuclear, Colorado in 1999. I don't even think there was a murder up until my dad disappeared, or anything like that happening. Homicides, murders, kidnappings, rapes, stuff like that. It's a small community, and it's like Smallville, and it's one of those places where people live in their bubble, and they don't think that anything bad is going to happen until it does. And then when it does, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to professionally go through things where it might be experienced more on a weekly or monthly basis, such as murders and major crimes, The most action that people would see in Nucla during that time is like poaching,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a place where things like this happen. And I think that during that time when it did happen, they did the best that they could with what they knew, and the county let the state take over from there, and then the CBI, took over, and then the FBI took over. But in regards to where the local authorities are concerned, I think that they did the best that they could with what they had at the time.
And you have a relationship with law enforcement over there now, the people who are investigating the case?
Right, yeah, we have a pretty close relationship with our current investigator, close enough to where we can just send him a text and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you know about this? And he'll get back to us either by responding to a text or a phone call. So yeah, we're on good terms with the investigator, and he keeps my sister and I up to speed as much as he can. I really wish that they would open up and work, be open to working with more PIs, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if I'm taking the wrong steps in order to make this happen, or, I don't really know what the deal is there, or why, they haven't reached out. Or maybe they have reached out to other people and I just don't know about it, like maybe they have reached out to investigative journalists and I just don't know. Or, I know that they even went to the extent of bringing in a psychic, and I don't really believe in that kind of stuff, but I don't know. If it helps people and it helps them come to conclusions, then I'm all for people finding closure in whatever means that they can.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for law enforcement because, we're not law enforcement, but we do interact with them on occasion. And some of them, it just takes a little bit longer to come around to the new methods in which they solicit information from the public in order to put pieces together. I mean, it happened before social media, and it'll happen after, a new form of information comes their way. They just need some time to adapt.
Yeah, and I totally get it, because they don't want to do anything to jeopardize a conviction if it were to come up,
Right.
I guess, we are 100% behind whatever they say to do or not to do, or to say and not to say, because we feel the same way. We don't want to jeopardize my dad's case.
And when did they actually start, an active search for Dale?
The active community search started 2 days after he physically disappeared. So I want to say that was the 29th of May, because it was either the 28th or the 29th of May. I drove over the mountain, and I can't remember if we started the search party or started searching as soon as I got there, or they had started as soon as I got there, or the day after, and everybody met at the town hall and then were assigned areas to go look in. I don't remember anything outside of a community search that happened, with like the state or the county, really. The locals were obviously they they were helping with the searching during the community search, I guess. There were 2 community searches they did. So, the local authorities were helping with that and definitely helping organize it and stuff like that. But I don't recall like a huge county department search or anything like that.
Right. And how many people, just curious now that you mentioned that, how big the Nucla police force is, or is there even a local police station, or is it a county sheriff?
I think that they're kind of considered county. I don't know if there's a city department or not. I can't remember either if there was. They had dispatch and, maybe 5 or 6 officers. It really wasn't that big. It was pretty small. I had a friend who worked dispatch. She was working dispatch after my dad disappeared. I don't know. It's super small. When my husband and I got married, he was the day of my wedding. My husband was pulled over trying to get to the church and speeding, but he wasn't going like obscenely fast or anything. They pulled him over because they didn't recognize his vehicle. And he's like, "I'm so sorry if I did something wrong. I'm just on my way to my wedding." And Bonnie Sickles is like, "Oh yeah, who are you marrying?" And he said, "Oh, Toni Williams." And Donnie goes, "Oh, I used to bowl with her. Yeah, you better hurry on." And, so it's like, it's not big. It's not big at all.
You also said that there were 2 community searches. Were there any notable absences from either one of those community searches that you remember?
Those 2 days were pretty foggy for me. So I can probably tell you on one hand the people that I honestly remember there. But I know that there were about 500 people out looking for my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a big community search. I mean, it was basically the whole town, I guess, from what I've been told. I physically don't remember that because I think it's just too long ago, and it was a super emotionally distressing time for me. So I think that I probably kind of blocked that out a little bit.
Yeah, because the population is only 700, so that really is almost the entire
whole
town.
town.
And
Yeah,
and I totally understand you blocking out those days.
Well, and you have to remember that the community, Nucla community, is very close to other communities. So Norwood, Redville, Natarita, Nucla, Bedrock, and Paradox are all within 20 minutes of Nucla. And my dad had close friends with people in all of those towns. So that's 7 communities, 7 jurisdictions, I guess you can call them. And 500 to 700 people, I want to say, somewhere in there, those are the people that came to help look for my dad out of the entire area.
Okay, and your dad's truck was located, I think, 6 weeks later. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some events leading up to that?
Sure. So the search parties happened and nothing was found. Nobody found traces of anything. Nothing. There was nothing. And then there was a new family that had moved to town, and I guess that they had, asked somebody on where they could go swimming or fishing for the weekend, and they were directed to the confluence of the rivers in Yerevan. And so they're out there swimming and having a good time, and this is firsthand knowledge. I am good friends with the person that found my dad's truck, and he had physically told me that his fishing line had gotten caught on something. And so he went out into the river and was standing on something white. He could tell that it was white, but he didn't know what it was, and he thought it was a refrigerator. So he swam down and figured out that it was a car, came back up, got air, went back down, and the windows were open. And he had told me that he was trying to get into the glove box to find the registration, but he wasn't able to get into it, and instead pulled the dash cover off of the dash into the surface. And on the dash cover, it was embroidered Pro Body Shop, which is the name of my dad's body shop. And at that point, he ran down to Yametco and then called 911 and said that he had found my dad's truck. Before that, there was, while they were there, before they found the truck, they had noticed that there was this teal, like geo-tracker kind of vehicle, like a little big itty-bitty SUV, you know?
Yeah.
That was driving back and forth along this dirt road. And this road connects Yerevan to Paradox and Bedrock. It's not well known by anybody other than locals. So, you know, it's not like anybody from Grand Junction would be going down there and saying, oh, let's take this road. It's a little shortcut. Nobody does that unless they're locals. Anyway, this vehicle kept driving back and forth, and watching this family. And eventually they pulled over and had said, this guy that has never been identified, he had like grayish hair and long, kind of reached out the window and said, you guys don't need to be playing around here. And they're like, whatever, dude. And they drove by a couple more times, and then that was the last that anybody saw of this vehicle. And then shortly after, Levi had found my dad's truck.
And they never recognized the person who told them to stop playing around?
Well, right. So the family, Levi and his family had just moved to Nucla. They didn't know anybody.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so even if it was a local, they wouldn't have recognized who it was. They wouldn't know who it was. But that person and that vehicle has never been found or identified. And I've had long conversations with my friend Levi about my dad's, about finding my dad's truck. First of all, he has absolutely no reason to lie to me about anything that he has told me. And, he specifically asked when they were trying to pull the truck with a backhoe, he had specifically asked if they wanted him to swim downriver and retrieve things that were floating out of my dad's car. And they said, no, we have enough evidence with the vehicle. And that just blew my mind. I have no idea why the county or state or whoever said that, and why they wouldn't put up something to retrieve things floating out of the river or out of the truck.
They just let possible evidence float away down the river.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And it was quite possibly trash or whatever, but I don't know who told Levi that, but I know that he wouldn't lie about something like that to me, or to anybody, and especially if he felt like it was concerning, he's not going to fabricate some story about that to upset me. He was telling the truth. And that was very unsettling to me. And that's about the time when I started. Well, my sister and I were never included in any of the details of the investigation from the beginning until 2013. So the people that were working the case were either deliberately keeping us out of it or something else. I don't know what their intentions were on not talking to my sister and I, or if it was my family or what. But we were not made aware of anything going on during the early stages of the investigation. And I just personally found that very unsettling that they wouldn't set up something to retrieve this possible evidence floating out of this truck.
Yeah, I mean, at least make an effort.
Yeah, at least let him go down and get it. He's like, it wasn't very far. I would have just had to like run down there, run downstream, and then jump in the river and get it. You know, it's not like it was a big deal, but for them to say, no, we have enough evidence with the truck, that is the one thing that I found completely unacceptable.
Yeah, it really is. It almost sounds like a knee-jerk reaction. Like the police immediately saying no to somebody who's a citizen to provide assistance. It just feels like a irresponsible knee-jerk reaction. Like, no, we got this. We don't need your help. But there is no explanation for it. That's just me speculating.
And, the people that were there at the time of the truck pulling, I don't think that any of those people are on my dad's case at all anymore. And they are probably not even with the same departments anymore or in the area. I just don't know why they would have done that.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling. I also want to make one comment that, we can just consider. I feel like a teal geo-tracker is sort of a standout vehicle in an area like that. I kind of feel like that type of vehicle would be sort of useless in an area like this. I feel like most people had pickup trucks or something of the sort. Just a random comment. I feel like it should have stood out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like if you don't know, if you're not familiar with the area, like why would you have this? So I don't know, like I had never seen that type of vehicle in the area. Even when I moved back after I got out of school, I moved back to Nucla for about 8 months or so, and I had never seen any vehicle like that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's almost like seeing a smart car now. It just kind of stands out. It's like, oh, that's an interesting vehicle.
What are you going to do with that?
Right. Especially in the area where your dad's truck was found. And I want to bring this up real quick. We had spoken previously, and you had taken us on a virtual tour of the area through Google Earth, and you were directing us around. And if people go to Google Earth and they go to the area right now where your dad's truck was found, there's a creepy coincidence there. It means nothing, but I just want you to talk about that really, as you see fit.
Right. Yeah. The creepy coincidence is there's a white truck parked where my dad's truck was found, and it's just creepy.
No, it really is, and there's actually the street view is one thing, but on Google Earth, when you get into areas that are more remote, you don't have the street view anymore, and that area where your dad's truck was found is certainly nothing that warrants the Google car to go down and get a street view of, but somebody took a picture of the area, so there's like this 360 street view that you can view there, and you can actually put yourself right down there and you can see this white truck, which is it's pretty rare for an area like that. It's literally in the middle of canyons and right on the river.
Yeah,
it's very strange.
Yeah, it really is. And but this swimming hole, it's pretty deep, right? Is there any chance that Dale is there? How was that searched, the swimming hole?
They have taken divers through the river through there. I don't think that they did it the day of when the truck was pulled, or if they did, I don't know about it. But I have, our investigator has told us that there have been divers in the river a few times, actually. And also during the winter, the river gets very low. You can just walk across it. And in the spring, it fills up. And by summer, it's fairly deep, like 15 to 17 feet deep right there.
And this description of this teal geo tracker and the man with the long hair, does that match the description by any chance of the fellow who came by your work when you weren't there? Was there a description of that person?
There wasn't a description that I know of. of that individual.
I want to get back to the condition of the truck now. We have some details about how the truck was found. The wipers were on, which would indicate that at some point either it was raining or whoever was driving it turned the wipers on, maybe by accident, or maybe to do like the windshield wash or something. But the wipers were in the on position. The wheels, if I'm not mistaken, were cranked hard to the left, which would indicate that the truck took a hard left turn, probably into the river. And the driver's side and passenger windows were almost all the way down, like 3/4 of the way down, which would indicate that they were trying to intentionally sink this. Is there anything else about the condition of the truck that you know of?
The engine was on, and the vehicle was in low 4-wheel drive.
Low 4-wheel drive. What is...
A low 4x4 gear to where it would, kind of crawl basically by itself without having to put, gas on and stuff like that. So I take it you haven't been 4-wheel being over boulders and stuff then, huh?
I see, yeah. Okay, so it was in low 4-wheel drive. So maybe are you suggesting that someone had started it, turned the wheels, rolled the windows down, put it in this gear so that it could creep down into the river?
Right. Yep, exactly. And, now that I'm thinking about the specific details of this circumstance, as soon as you get into a river that has silt on it, in it, and stuff like that, it's going to get pretty muddy pretty fast and hard to get through, I guess. So I guess their intentions were to get the truck as deep as it could go into the river on its own without them having to be in the cab. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because why risk yourself, right, when you're trying to sink a vehicle? I have a question about the windshield wipers. Does that indicate to you, with the windshield wipers being on, that they had kept the truck somewhere else and then driven it to this location to dump it?
Yeah, that's what I think. I think that the truck was stashed somewhere, who knows where. I mean, there's access to 4-wheel drive roads all over that area. You could very easily stash a truck for an extended period of time before somebody found it. Unless it's like a hunter or a rancher moving, their cows and stuff like that. But, I think that the truck was stashed and then driven down there at a later time. There are some circumstances where some tire tracks from the vehicle were found through cow droppings. So a rancher had moved their cows through that area before the truck had gone through the area. And I also think that the windshield wipers were on because it was raining. But, it's also possible that as the cab started flooding, that something could have knocked the wipers up or down in order to activate them.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't like a turn knob. It was like a vertical, like up or down to turn them on.
I'm not sure. I've had cars that do both, and so I'm not particularly sure on which one it was. If it was up and down or turn the knob. In my car, it's up and down. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think in my car it's up and down as well.
The wipers could have come on just by, physics.
Right. And I guess like as far as priorities go, that's got to be sort of in the mid range of top priorities.
Well, I think that it isn't really for me because I think that the investigative team has already done that portion.
Right.
If I went through and figured all of this out myself, it's nothing that isn't already known, so it's just kind of wasted time. Right.
Can you talk a little bit about? I just have one more detail about this, and then I feel like I'm pretty good. The tools that were found scattered throughout the area in the subsequent days after they found your dad's truck. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the tools, I think that there are still tools being found, actually. And this is kind of important, actually, when it's pertaining to the truck. My dad had a toolbox that was bolted to the bed. It's like one of those metal silver ones, heavy duty, and bolted. It wasn't just like flying around in the bed. It was literally bolted to the bed of the truck. That toolbox was not on the truck when they pulled the vehicle. And it had my dad's tools in it. So a lot of those tools have been found scattered about the mountains around Paradox and Bedrock area, but in the opposite direction of where my dad's truck was found. So I distinctively believe that was done on purpose to guide people away from finding the truck.
Right, like the tools could be scattered in the opposite direction of where your dad actually is.
Right, yep. And, I'm looking at the pictures online of my dad's truck and the ones that they have released, and you can tell that the toolbox is not there. It's not on the truck.
I see. Interesting.
That's really interesting. I can imagine that it would take some effort to take a toolbox like that, which was bolted to the bed of the truck, out of the truck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Huh. And the toolbox itself has never been found.
The toolbox has not. Now that there was a lid that was found. The lid was found later, and there's kind of some back and forth on whether or not it was planted or not, but I think that they thought that somebody had probably brought it down there and placed it several weeks or years or months. I'm not sure when the lid was discovered.
And how far from where the truck was were the tools and the toolbox lid found?
Oh, well, okay, so the lid was supposedly found in the river, the same river area where the truck was found. And then the tools are found, quite a distance away. I'll have to get on the Google Maps and measure it, but, several miles.
Oh, okay. So, geez, and how big was his toolbox? This is something that would be pretty heavy, I would have to imagine.
Oh, yeah. It's a standard size metal toolbox that you put in the back of a truck.
I'm just a podcaster, so you have to speak in computer terms to me.
Okay, so the width of the bed and maybe 2 feet wide.
It's probably like 4 feet long. It's probably like 3 feet deep and about 2 feet wide.
But the lid was found. That's interesting.
Yeah, the lid was found. So the lid has like hinges on it. So the lid, that just doesn't fall off. It's not like it's clipped on. This is a box that's designed to keep tools safe while it's in the back of a truck, like exposed to the elements. It's not just falling apart. Yeah, that has to be physically removed, not just like, water eroded at it.
Right. Yep.
So then where do you think your dad might be today?
I personally think that my dad is in a mine shaft somewhere in those mountains. There's so many mines up there. I mean, if you are familiar with the area, it would not be difficult to find some place to stash a body.
Right. I think you mentioned last time we spoke that there was 36,000 mines, and a lot of them aren't being used anymore.
None of them are being used. There's no active mining in that area. The mine might be, open. There's a website you can go to and physically click on these mines and see what their status is. I think it's called the diggings. Yeah, the diggings. So there's over 36,000 mines in the area. The link will take you straight to Yerevan. It actually will tell you how many there are. So it says that there are 2,699 active claims in the area. Now, that doesn't mean that they are actively mining. It just means that it's an active claim. There's 36,032 that are closed. So a lot of these mines have been passed down from family member to family member to family member. But, yeah, you can go to the digging site, and there's a lot of information that you can get out of these mines if you just click on one, especially if you kind of know where it is. It'll tell you the aliquots, the physiography, what it was. So I'm just on one right now, and it says that uranium was the primary commodity and vanadium was the secondary commodity. It says the county. It says who owns it. The land status is federal right now. I mean, there's a lot that you can find on this website about all these mines.
Yeah, pretty cool site, the diggings.com.
Yeah. It's a very interesting site, and it's kind of neat because if you were, trying to figure out if you could even go in a mine or something like that, you can look up what was there to see if there's gases in it or something like that. But, more times than not, the reason why a mine is dangerous is because of the lack of oxygen the deeper you get. And an air vent to a mine is pretty deep within the shaft itself. And, an air vent is not small. If I was going to dispose of something, I would search for an air vent in the area.